Previously on X-Men.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Smirking Gun. This is Rob here, and we're back talking comics, if you couldn't already tell by the thumbnail. And we are returning to X-Men 97, the comic book. Okay, I still haven't watched X-Men 97, the series. If you don't want to know why, watch the first issue video we did a week ago or so. But I was, just in case anybody thought I wasn't going to do number 2 or this whole series, because it's a mini series leading up to the new one, so it's only going to be like I think 5 issues or something like that. So it's not like a huge commitment, but it's a lot of fun to talk about. And so just kind of like they do, as the lead-in says, previously on X-Men, like before we get started talking about X-Men 97 number 2 prequel to the series, this will be talking about everything that goes on in this book. But the first issue is like it's a fat issue, by the way. All right, both of these books feel like there's a lot in them. This doesn't these neither of these books feel like chintzy at all, as far as like, are you getting your money's worth? Because I mean, it's $5 for a comic these days is a lot. And if you're not into this, if you think it's like too much for kids, or your Saturday mornings are over and you don't really need to see the representation of this as you've gotten older and whatnot, and that's fine, because it is very much a Saturday morning cartoon put in a comic book. And if you're not into that, then I don't recommend it, except for hardcore lovers of the X-Men everything. At least the animated series. You might just like the animated series and say screw everything else. I mean, most people do, right? The regular ass people out there that watch X-Men 97 or any of the X stuff are basically people who only know it from what they've seen in the movies or now with the cartoon, which again, I'm hoping becomes, any fans of comics that the X-Men 97 show can, bring in, the better, and to create new fans of the X-Men the animated series show. But at this point, we already did the hard work, folks. Generation X got this show done. Okay, I don't even care. I'm not trying to like punk any other like boomers, millennials, or Gen Z. I'm not trying to punk anybody about it. I'm just saying we did it, and that's it. You're welcome. Everybody watching it on Disney Plus after the fact is great. They see the numbers. So we did it. You helped. All right. The growing numbers helped. Just like when everybody went into COVID and watched everything, and suddenly people were fans of a bunch of shit that'd been out for fucking 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Basically, the whole planet binge watched everything they'd ever wanted to watch. But anyway, before we get too sidetracked into all that, mostly because I'm excited. This is what happens like when I get excited. So yeah, like, subscribe, all that stuff. But previously on X-Men, yeah, we set it all up. We've got a Danger Room sequence. We've got Dazzler. We've got the Friends of Humanity. We've got Mr. Sinister. We've got Mohawk Storm for the first time. We've got Jean and Scott expecting, like there's some definite pregnancy news that Scott's about to find out. We get Val Cooper. We get the return of the Nasty Boys, Mr. Sinister's guys. I mean, there's so much in this first issue. And it's just filled to the brim of everything that I love about the X-Men and the animated series. And it's, we have Bishop joining the group in this. I mean, he's already part of it in this, but like for anybody that's, new to the show, I mean, he was a guest star, for the most part. Like a lot of characters that we wish were in these more were, because you couldn't have that big a team. I mean, in the comics they had blue and gold, man, back in that time, right? And that's because there were so many X characters out there that they needed more than one team, which is why there's also X Factor, X Force, New Mutants, Generation X. I like that one, man. That book. I mean, I think, yeah, they even did like a TV movie for Generation X. But yeah, X-Men 97 #1 has it all, man. And so going into X-Men 97 #2, I was nervous because I was like, what am I going to talk about? I'm just going to be doing the book, right? I'm going to just read the book and I'm going to be like, oh, well, I did the right thing by not reading the book for the first time this time. I read it before I made this video. It's one thing to read the first issue with everybody for the first time because I know so much about the animated series and we're going into something cold, a book series cold, so it's kind of like you can talk about anything. But what do you talk about going into the second issue cold unless you know some stuff? So I read it and this is okay, they've always done adaptations of the comic book series, but man, they came like they're not kidding around. Like they are going deep and they're sticking to the time period. Even earlier though than like X-Men 97 takes place. I mean, because the character that I have here is my avatar, who's in the name Hazard. I went, wait a minute. Like when they introduce like um but I don't know if I want to do this during I'm going to do this now rather than while we're reading because I wanted to talk about the way that they are adapting it. So even like because again, I haven't seen the new series, but I'm sure and I've been told, they're adapting stories from the books, which we're even going to get to more of that kind of stuff on the channel when we do comics when it's X related stuff as well. But I didn't know that, they didn't really do anything in the first issue other than introduce, have Val Cooper in there, which, she's the head of X Factor way back in the day. She's been worn a lot of hats, but originally, I believe her first job and the first introduction was as the government liaison for X Factor. So we get her in that issue, but nothing other than that too much out of the animated series realm with Mr. Sinister and the Nasty Boys and him still being obsessed with the Summers line. That was part of the original animated series. But then they introduce Hazard, which I mean, like of characters they probably could have skipped. They didn't. And I love that. It's like bringing out whenever you get to see some of the more obscure characters in the Marvel or DC universe either. Like hell, Suicide Squad is, both movies are filled with people that even, most people haven't heard of. And uh the Guardians of the Galaxy were nobodies before they made their movie. We've gotten to see a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of interesting pools. I mean, like hell, Moon Knight had a guy played by Ethan Hawke who was in one issue of Moon Knight, and that's it. He's never seen again. Mostly because he fucking dies, but I mean, usually they bring those guys back. Maybe he did get brought back for all I know. I haven't read every issue of Moon Knight. But they are adapting in this. They are bringing out this kind of he's the character, like spoiler alert in the comics, is depowered. He was depowered and now he's dead after M Day, which is a whole other thing with Scarlet Witch that if you don't know, look it up. Because there's so many things to talk about that I don't want to be talking about everything ping pong, pinballing all over the place too much before we start talking about it proper. But I love talking about it. And this is where I love the conversations go. You can start talking about one thing. And then by the time you're done talking, you've talked about 100 things that just off of one thing. But anyway, so Hazard, he's like what you would consider like a nobody really in the X world, but they pulled it. Now it might be because he's a Z-list kind of character, but that's why they used him for the book, because they didn't want to use anybody like big all of a sudden, somebody that's more popular or more well known for, they wanted to use those for more of the main series probably. But still, I love that they pulled this because this guy he came out in X-Men #12 and #13 way back in like 1990. I got it here. Dang. Okay. Sorry, I was trying to look at my notes. He was first appeared in X-Men Volume 2, which is not really. It's number 12 in July of 1992. So I was like just out of junior year in high school when this guy was introduced. He died in 2008 in X-Men Legacy number 211. Um, but he's got a really interesting history. But what they had to do as far as like what's the adaptation difference? Well, as you'll see in the book or in the series, right? Xavier's gone. So Hazard's whole backstory has to do with Xavier. And his whole thing is that he's that guy. He's that character that comes a looking for the guy who did him wrong, and the guy who did him wrong in this case is Charles Xavier, or so how he feels. Xavier, I mean, I feel like the general consensus, as good as Patrick Stewart is in the role in the movies, that Xavier really, especially after Dawn of X and Fall of X now, it's time for Xavier to be shuffled off, I think, again. Like, he's always going to be the guy that brought him together, but I think he needs to be the guy that leaves now. But the only thing that sucks is that Charles Xavier is like one of the most powerful telepaths. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of like having him around, but like maybe just I think there's things to do with Xavier without killing him, but without letting him be a part of the X-Men either. So in X-Men number 12 and 13, he comes for Xavier, and he finds the team, and they actually go off on multiple missions, and because we're deep in X lore at this time, so many things aren't just about just this one story. There are so many plot lines being juggled in X-Men at the time. And I mean, Jim Lee had just departed, right? I think his last issue was number 9 or 10. And actually, I should have my head examined. Jim Lee's last issue of X-Men was the issue right before this. So it was X-Men number 11. I have 2 t-shirts of that cover, so I don't know how I didn't remember that right now. But yeah, his last issue was X-Men number 11. It was a Mojo and Longshot, and what a way for personally, just me personally, going out on a Mojo, getting to have him draw some of my favorite characters in Longshot and Mojo and Spiral, and everybody getting to, like, whenever they do Mojo stuff, they get to have a lot of fun in the stories. So there's still more to talk about this, but I did want to put up, because I can do this now. We're gonna share screen here and show the very last panel that Jim Lee did on X-Men. And all right. So yeah, this is Jim Lee's last panel on X-Men after they got back. They've defeated Mojo, and I mean, look at this. I mean, everybody might be chilling, but everybody still looks like. I mean, Gambit is smoking. Logan is smoking. Psylocke is smoking. And Longshot and Dazzler are having a kid. And of course, old Jubilee is just not having any of it. She looks upset. And the last words are the child has a point. Thanks. And who you calling a child? How do we know we're not still being manipulated? We don't. Here or in the real world, there are no guarantees in life, people. There comes a time between life and death when all men stop to catch their breath. We ask the stars why, we question our lot. The heavens open wide and reply, why not? Yeats. Nope. Beast. And as you see them say, Shatterstar, you've got to be kidding. Alluding to the fact that Longshot and Daredevil are the parents of Shatterstar from X-Force. If you don't know who he is, he was the guy that showed up for half a second in Deadpool 2, and that was more to me of a parody of Shatterstar, but a good parody nonetheless. Yeah, this video is a lot, folks. But anyway, the adaptation being that that Charles Xavier's not in the picture, and what do we do with how do we adapt this? Why do we bring this character in this then? Um, but first, his history, Hazard's history, though, is important to the character and what they do with him here because Brian Xavier, Kurt Marco, and Hazard's father, Alexander Reiking, were all part of a secret mutant research project called Black Womb at Alamogordo, New Mexico. I'm getting this off of the Marvel database, by the way. Brian Xavier being Xavier's dad, and Kurt Marco as Kane Marco's father. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Wait, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's like messed up now that I'm really thinking about the relationship that Kane and Marco and Charles Xavier have and how that has to do with their parents. Oof. Um, but Hazard's dad was really into these experiments that they were doing because Carter's powers were like plasma based and he had no control over them. And if he didn't, they didn't build him this like suit, basically he'd explode. And kind of like Orphan Maker when they had to build him armor. Which would be really interesting if like Hazard was like an alternate version of Orphan Maker who because they have very similar power sets anyway, and very similar. Like, oh my god, we have to do this. But I mean, I guess there's always been stories told in comics about people who couldn't control their power enough to where they would literally blow up. But so that's not just what's in, like that's just the basics of this and what they do in here. And have him attacking the school and bringing in Sienna Blaze that we'll all see. But we also get like, as far as the cover goes and what I talked about last issue, we get the Marauders as well. So we get the setup of all that, which is going to continue into the third issue. Then so they just have him do that instead of dealing with Xavier. But the issues 12 and 13 of the book, like I said, are mostly Xavier driven stuff with the team all helping out a lot. But also those issues bring up a lot of things that happen whenever they bring Charles Xavier back, man. Is it's just like all the problems that he brings with him himself and all all the ways that he fails these people. Is kind of amazing that they do keep bringing him back sometimes. But like I said, the books also deal with all the different subplots because even though the Scott Jean pregnancy thing, that's old hat. That was like way before the X-Men #1, Jim Lee series even started. We got stuff in here from Wolverine about the Shiva program, and we've got stuff about, one of the characters is contacted by somebody named Fontanelle, Hazard is, and that's got to do with Gambit and some other thing. And then you've got the whole thing with Xavier on top of all that. So the comic book doesn't try to do all that. But it does adapt it the best it can and again, I'm really excited about them bringing in like these kind of Z-list characters. I should also mention Sienna Blaze that's going to be in this. All right, so Sienna Blaze is another character that's basically another like Z-list kind of character who is been dead and brought back several times recently. Is July 2019, I think they died again. Her first appearance was in Strife's Strike File #1. So that's in November of 92. And that just sounds to me like something that's in the back of a comic, like the Xavier files and stuff. So to me, it might actually like I'm gonna actually look that up. Strife Strike File number 1. Is that an actual thing? Or is it like a one shot like little book? Yeah, that's like one of those just like little books that gives you extra information about everything because everything had gotten so complicated. Everything's always so complicated in the X universe, though. But she's got destructive powers. She's been a member of the Upstarts, which is like Fitzroy's thing, Trevor Fitzroy. So she's, you know, been basically a mutant terrorist, like the Brotherhood of Mutants have been, and Strife's people have always been. Um, and so she's brought into this too, and I'm pretty sure she's playing a big part in X-Men 97 number 3 as well. And she's kind of like a boom boom type character, I would say, like the uh, like characters that like as far as like if I had to pick a hero counterpart, I'd probably say something along the lines of Boom Boom. Although Boom Boom has her fans, I don't dislike Boom Boom. I'm going down the list of characters that we know that are probably lesser favorite of people. I mean, she makes bombs. It's kind of better than Jubilee does fireworks, right? So without any further ado, let's get into X-Men 97 number 2. All right, X-Men 97 number 2. By Steve Fox as the writer, Salva Espin as the artist, Matt Miller as the colorist. I'm letting my Nice House on the Lake video bleed in here. And VC's Joe Sabino is the letterer. We got a ton of cover artists, Todd Knock and Rachel Rosenberg, Nick Dragotta, Romulo Fajardo Jr., and David Mack. I think I have the Knock one. Anyway, a surprise act joined this evening's Charles Xavier Memorial Concert as a group calling themselves the Nasty Boys attempted to disrupt the festivities. Trish Tilby. Trish. Luckily, several members of the X-Men were in attendance, working in concert with mutant pop star Dazzler to make short work of the party crashers. This is the latest high-profile act of heroism from the formerly controversial team who have become increasingly popular with average Americans in recent months. In other mutant news, the psychic ninja known as and then they tease us. The show would do this too, man. When they showed us Deadpool in like a frame or so of like a Wolverine episode where he's seeing things, I can't remember which one it was. It just drove us crazy. It was like, oh my god! And back then we were just sitting there with the person sitting next to us, if there was anybody sitting next to us. We didn't have the internet to be able to like turn and go, oh my god! So, like, showing Psylocke here, and it's a slightly different Psylocke because she's got the mask over her face, right? That's great. It's a nice little touch to keep her more towards, like, the ninja version of Psylocke. But just, yeah, that's typical, and I love it. You get the punching of the TV screen from Mr. Sinister. For years, humanity hated and feared mutants, which enabled my great work to advance while the X-Men fought battles on other fronts. But Xavier's whelps have come far too close to realizing their mentor's noble goals of acceptance and assimilation. The key to my genetic research is finally within my grasp, incubating within one of the X-Men. I will not let it slip away because the sheep of the world celebrate the wolves in their midst. We must remind humanity that the X-Men bring danger to their doorsteps, that they are to be despised, not celebrated. We must remind them, my Sinister Seven, of the mutant menace. Now, when he says the mutant menace in this, or when he says the Sinister Seven, and I look and I see them and I go, you mean the Marauders? Oh shit, are they not calling them the Marauders? And even though I was a little bent out of shape that they might do that, it was like it's that instant that we always do. Like whenever we don't get like whenever something's off from like whatever we know, we're like, we start getting panicky. Are they not going to be called the Marauders? Oh my god, what if they're called the Sinister Seven? There's a Sinister Six. We don't need a Sinister Seven. That's stupid. And then you have to remind yourself that you're reading a comic book about superheroes and mutants, and while there are deeper meanings, getting mad over little tiny details that aren't exactly the same as the other thing is just stupid. Ignorant. The X Mansion, Westchester, New York. Gene, I don't know what to say. I can't read the test result. It's a red line, right? My visor. Mwah. We're going to be parents, Scott. We're going to have a family. Oh, Scott, I couldn't be happier right now. Dude, you're walking around with freaking claws that can pop out of your arms, and you've had plenty of ladies in your life, Wolverine. It's kind of, you know, need some air. This mansion's feeling cramped. It appears my intuition was correct, and I am not the only one to discover the news. Perhaps it is now Logan who needs a friend's comfort. Bow chicka bow. Oh, just kidding. Who else knows? Can you detect if it's a boy or a girl? Do you have names in mind yet? I wanted to tell you first, but I think Aurora could sense. Beast! We should tell Beast. I'm sure he's up to date on the best prenatal care for mutant pregnancies. Alert! Alert! Intruder on mansion grounds. The proximity sensors are under attack. We've got to get you somewhere safe, Gene. Calm down, Scott. It might be a false. That's not a false alarm. You mourn a false legacy. Charles Xavier was not a great man. He was a liar, a manipulator. And his students will suffer as he should have. So it's not uncommon for people to come bursting into the mansion. It's kind of one of the things that became a cliche and a trope that was pretty tiresome after a while. So to the point, I think now where anybody mentions going back to the school, and it's like, yeah, you go to the school, and the next day, it's like a Resident Evil helicopter, folks. The next day, it's just gone, a shot out of the sky. But here, it's like, what do you do? How do you introduce this character if Xavier's gone? Well, apparently he's here just looking to tell them off, which is a little like whatever. Like, I'm here to let you know that the guy that's dead, I don't know, maybe he doesn't know he's dead. I can't remember. We'll get to it, but it's just like, hey, like you could just knock on the door and be like, hey man, I need to tell you about your mentor. But no, that's not dramatic enough. We got to blast through the school. Gene, don't overexert yourself. I'm not helpless, Scott. In fact, I can still give this intruder a taste of his own medicine. And typical, we're getting overprotective Scott here. I mean, it is a pretty dangerous situation. So concern is warranted. But he's always been like that. So it's kind of like the pushback being like, dude, like I can still like, I'm not an idiot. I'm powerful too, and I know the risks, and I know what we're doing. The name is Hazard, and if you stand in Xavier's shadow, you will perish as he did. You came here to insult Professor X and threaten my wife? Buddy, you picked the wrong fight. The skies over New York City. And can you believe the song she picked for the encore? Talk about like the perfect concert. We, Gambit had to admit, Jubilee, that Dalzer puts on a show, and the lady is quite a looker too, no? Remy, I swear. Don't worry, Sheriff. Gambit only has eyes for whoa. We've been hit with some sort of electromagnetic pulse. The Blackbird's controls are fried. I'm going to bring her down as gently as I can, but I'd brace for a bumpy landing. I'll get outside and try to slow him down, Bishop. Hey, if we're going to crash anyway, maybe now's my chance to finally fly the jet? Just like wrestling gators back home. And of course, Superwoman. When I said we should drop by Central Park more often, I didn't mean it literally. At least it's after hours. Could have been here bad if the Blackbird fritzed in the middle of the day. What hit us? That'd be me. My name's Sienna Blaze, and don't worry, your night can still get a whole lot worse. Harry's Hideaway, Westchester. Is that seat taken? All yours, darling. Not sure you're dressed for this dive, though. My new hairstyle fits in, does it not? I watched you leave the mansion in a hurry, Logan. I thought you might like some company. Bound chicka. Oh, sorry. Came to see an old friend about a drink row. Logan, tell me, is this about Jean? Guess I'm not the last to find out the big news, huh? She did not yet tell me either, but I could discern what she was dancing around. Wasn't trying to snoop on her in the Boy Scout. Bad thing about enhanced senses. Sometimes you hear stuff you're not meant to hear. The bond between you and Jean is unique, Logan, but you must accept. Hold that thought, Ro. Because now I'm smelling something I really shouldn't be smelling. Something that stinks to high heaven. Snicked. Crack. Shatter. Mind if we drop in? My reservation should be under Riptide. Chunk, chunk, chunk. You are foolish enough to attack. Storm, the mistress of the elements, with the forces of the wind. Hubris knows no bounds. Neither do Sabretooth and the Marauders, Frail. We go where we please. So I was like, oh God, like this is the part where the nerds out there can unclench their assholes and be like, oh, thank God they called them the Marauders. And only thank God at least some of them are actually from the original team. The mansion's alarms interrupted a positively engrossing passage of Kierkegaard. Is everyone all right? Oh my stars and garters. Beast, this lunatic blew a hole in the mansion and almost crushed Jean. I'm fine, Scott, really. Why do I get the impression that there is subtext just beyond my grasp? Ah, well, one priority at a time. Enough! Crash. Not how I would choose to install a skylight. Charles Xavier left me to rot when my mutant powers manifested. If this mansion is to be his legacy, then let it reflect the ruin he leaves in his wake. See, just another person come and destroy the school. But see, there's this whole thing about letting him rot. But also his powers are messed up, and I don't think they're gonna let us see like how much damage he can do because he literally would just like incinerate people. Like you'd see their skeletons, like they'd go X-ray and shit, and then they'd just be gone. Finally, I get to bust out the big guns. Pew pew, Rambo. Good luck lining up those crosshairs. Hey! I'm tapped into the Earth's electromagnetic field. There's no limit to what I can pull off. Okay, See this book just described her powers better than the freaking internet. Real bad for the planet, real fun for me. So she's kind of like a little bit, I guess, would be kind of the Avalanche of the group, but not Avalanche because she can mess with electromagnetic fields, which lets her destroy things, crack open the earth like this. And as we can see, old Marie there is getting ready. And I think that's what's going to be, because that's the cover of X-Men 97 #3. I think you've had enough fun, sugar. Gah! Gah! You want my powers, X-Lady? Good luck controlling them. We're taking this little shindig outside, Sabretooth. Sounds good to me, Runt. Arclight, let her rip. You heard him. Let's party. Lightning, heed my command. No harm will come to this city tonight. I could say the same about my fellow marauders, Weather Witch. Name's Prism. My powers can refract whatever you throw at us. What's the matter, Creed? Didn't think you could take me on yourself? All these years watching you run with your little friends, figured I'd get some of my own. Pin 'em, Harpoon. Watch, wrap this up and cash our checks. Careful, buddy. Wouldn't want you to hit the wrong angry, hairy, stabby guy, would you? What, huh? How'd you move so fast, Sabretooth? That's not me, you idiot! Back off! You've got to admit, I do a pretty convincing imitation. After all, they don't call me Morph for nothing. To be continued. So we have Morph entering the picture now. Next issue, Too Close to the Blaze. We get the continuation of this fight between Hazard and Sienna Blaze and the X-Men. Freaking fun. So I hope y'all enjoy this. This is still a lot of fun. I'm enjoying getting to just go on and on about the comics I love and the stories I love and the lore behind it all, and how X-Men 97 #2 can bring up all these kinds of things that are rabbit holes into other books. And so I hope y'all keep enjoying this as I do talking about it. So we'll be back with X-Men 97 #3 probably within a week or so. And then keep looking out for more comics, because we're talking Gambit, we're talking Madripoor Nights, we're talking Nice House on the Lake, and then there's other stuff on my channel as well where we cover TV shows. Right now we're doing The Terror Infamy. We're also doing a revisit of the series Devs from Hulu, and we do game streams as well. So if you're enjoying all this kind of content, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we will be back with more X-Men 97 talk as soon as we can. Have a good one. Snick, baby.